All right, guys, if you've been following President Trump on Truth Social, you know that the world is about to end. The United States is resuming testing of nuclear weapons. This, of course, is in response to Russia testing nuclear weapons. And if you believe what the mainstream media is saying about it, you might think we're headed for mutually assured destruction. But none of that's true. Let's dive into the Truth Social post. President Trump truths out the United States has more nuclear weapons than any other country. This was accomplished, including a complete update and renovation of existing weapons during my first term in office. Because of the tremendous destructive power, I hated to do it, but had no choice. Russia is second and China is a distant third, but will be even within 5 years. Because of other countries' testing programs, I have instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. That process will begin immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. Now, a couple things that you point out there. First, President Trump hates nuclear weapons. It came out that he was on the brink of denuclearization following his first term. Russia and China were allegedly considering getting on board with this idea. Now, of course, that didn't come because stolen elections have consequences, and Joe Biden assumed office and squatted there for 4 years. But let's get into what they're actually talking about here. President Trump is referring to what the AP is reporting on right here. Putin says Russia's nuclear-armed underwater drone was tested successfully. Now, this is all in the buildup to President Trump meeting with Xi Jinping. Now, if you dive into this story, they're talking about this Poseidon drone, which is powered by a nuclear reactor. A nuclear reactor is powering a drone. Now, this drone is allegedly designed to be able to travel at up to 124 miles per hour underwater and go completely undetected and unstoppable. So you cannot stop this thing once it's underway. And with the nuclear reactor, it can travel huge distances. The goal, as it's reported, is for this drone to be able to sneak up on our coast, detonate off the coast, and cause a radioactive tsunami. Okay, sure. One of the things I noticed in this article that was absolutely fascinating is this part right here. President Putin said the nuclear reactor that powers the Poseidon is 100 times smaller than those on submarines. Now, in addition to the testing of the Poseidon underwater nuclear-powered drone, there was another big advancement made by Russia and announced to the public. If you jump down here, it says Putin also revealed new details about the Bereznik, I'm assuming that's pronounced correctly, the Bereznik cruise missile, saying that its nuclear reactor is 1,000 times smaller than the one on a submarine and starts in just minutes, unlike a submarine reactor that takes hours to launch. That missile can cover a distance of 8,600 miles during a 15-hour flight using nuclear fuel and conducting maneuvers demonstrating its high capabilities in evading missile and air defense system, according to a top Russian general. Now, what the article doesn't mention is that Russia actually detonated any nuclear warheads. They didn't actually test the detonation of any nuclear weapons. They just tested nuclear-powered devices, in this case, an underwater drone and an intercontinental ballistic missile. So if President Trump is to take, his words at face value, he says here, I have instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. So what would the equal basis be? The equal basis would be nuclear-powered drones and nuclear-powered missiles. Now, one of the things that we're going into the golden age, right? One of the things that we talk about so often, and this came up with the Iran denuclearization that took place, is the ability for Iran to have nuclear reactors and get access to clean nuclear energy. Energy is one of the most important things for civilization, of course. And so when you think about nuclear reactors, and there's been a lot of emphasis in Trump's administration about rebuilding nuclear infrastructure, rebuilding nuclear power plants, et cetera. Well, now we have Russia saying that they have nuclear-powered ICBMs and drones using nuclear reactors 100 and 1,000 times smaller than those on submarines. Well, the S-8G nuclear reactor on an Ohio-class submarine is about 2,700 tons. So if something is 1,000 times smaller than the S-8G reactor on an Ohio-class sub, That would be 0.27 tons, or about 590 pounds, somewhere around there. 600 pounds, we'll call it. That's the size of a small car engine. So imagine when we get to a point where these nuclear reactors that are the size of a truck engine or a car engine can be used to power your home, or be used to power small cities and towns or buildings. You completely and totally replace a lot of the infrastructure that's already needed. And we know there's a crisis around this country based on the power grid. Look at what happened to Texas in their freeze just a year and a half ago. Their infrastructure, electrical infrastructure, is way outdated. And that goes for the rest of the country as well. Just to demonstrate what I'm talking about here, I want to go back to a man that I respect tremendously, General Steve Quast. General Steve Quast was a lieutenant general in the U.S. Air Force. He's a huge proponent of Space Command, and he's gone on to develop companies like Genesis Systems and Space Build. He's the CEO currently of Space Build. And what they work on, Genesis, for example, was able to pull moisture out of the air and turn it into water that you can use in the driest of environments. Imagine if you could go to a desert and set up in a desert and have water supply on demand. That was what he was working on with Genesis. Then he goes on to Space Built, and now they're working on all sorts of things like satellites being able to build themselves up in space, satellites that are able to transmit radio waves back down to Earth that are then converted into energy with a much higher efficiency rate than what we're currently getting through our transmission systems. This man is an absolute genius, and he is a pioneer in this industry. Well, I want you to pay attention to what this one clip here he says on the Sean Ryan podcast.
Nuclear is on a path to where the odds of this chair going off high order are larger percentage-wise than those nuclear reactors going off high order, these modular small nuclear reactors that can power a city, okay, or a home, or a cluster of homes anywhere on the planet. So now you're talking about what you see with computers, where back in the day, computers, would fit on the third floor of a skyscraper and be millions of dollars. And now in everybody's pocket is a computer that for 500 to 800 bucks that blows away anything that was 50 years ago. This journey of more capability at lower cost is going to come to a market near you, a theater near you, in the form of electricity.
So what General Quast is talking about there, he's spoken about at our Guard events for Badlands Media before, where you literally are going to have nuclear reactors the size of picnic tables that can power an entire city. So while President Trump is catching headlines now because he's talking about something that is potentially mutually assured destruction, and that is the testing of nuclear weapons and the posturing of Russia as the war in Ukraine rages on, there is no nuclear test. Russia's not testing nuclear capabilities. Russia's not testing nuclear detonations. They're just testing nuclear reactors as a transmission source, being able to move an object from one space to another. President Trump, if he equals that, we could be seeing these small nuclear reactors in a matter of years. What's that going to do for our infrastructure when we're no longer dependent on power plants and we're no longer dependent on oil and coal and other resources? The leftists are going to go absolutely bonkers when they have clean energy through nuclear power that is going to be readily available. I could be wrong. Maybe President Trump is going to go back out into the desert and start detonating nuclear weapons like we haven't done in 30 years. Or maybe he's talking about this, the ushering in of a new golden age. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Please share this out. Hit the follow button, subscribe. Check out the sponsors down below, and we'll see you next time. Stay frosty. God bless each and every one of you. God bless America. Make the fortune cookie country pay for this.